is the hard knock life, but not the chica kind. More like the people in the world seeking perspectives with a different line. The kids who share their interests together with a similar kind. When they said Don Glover for Spider-Man, they didn't mind. The activists, directors, comments and the lectures, fanboys, professional artists and professors. Maybe a nerd who's just like you, talking about the things that you like too. So I invite you to the NOC in full color.
That's right. Your eyes don't deceive you. Hard Knock Life is back. I have a great show lined up tonight. We're going to talk about a little movie that's coming out on DVD, iTunes, and on demand on February 11th, which is next Tuesday. It's a movie called Unidentified, starring one of my friends and one of my partners on the Secret Identities project, Parry Shen. And we also have the director of the film, Jason Miller, on tonight. And we've also brought back our returning champion from past Hard Knock Lives, Junko, who saw a screening of the film a few months back. So she's here to share her thoughts about the movie as well. So why don't we go ahead and get started? So let's bring on Junko first. You know Junko as she's a writer on the Nerds of Color, but she's also an actress out in Los Angeles. Welcome back to Hard Knock Life, Junko.
Hey Keith, it's good to be back. And
on a nice working internet this time too.
Yes. Max all over.
So you watched. You were one of the few to see it the first time around.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
When they did a screening in Los Angeles, and you actually wrote about it on the site. Can you talk a little quickly about what you thought about Unidentified and how excited you are to talk to the creators of the film tonight?
Yeah, well, I didn't know much about it going in. The poster does give you good hints, but it's definitely surpassed my expectations as far as, without giving too much away, the special effects really added to it, and that just made it all that much more of a really good trip, like a movie trip.
Sure, and it's funny you use the word trip, because like if you were to summarize it like in one sentence, how would you describe, for people who have not seen the film yet but want to check it out next week, how would you describe the film in like a short sentence?
I would definitely put a bit of a red herring in, but I would say it's a hangover-like road trip that has an unexpected turn.
An unidentified turn.
Unidentified turn, that's a good one.
Well, thanks. I know you're a big sci-fi fan, so thanks for being back on the show to talk about the movie.
Totally. Yeah, looking forward to this.
Well, let me go ahead and bring on my first guest, who is the star of the film, and is also one of the writers of the film and the producer of the film, and I think he did craft services as well. He is, like I said earlier, my partner in the SI universe. You know him from the starring roles in Better Luck Tomorrow and the Hatchet trilogy, as well as Brad on General Hospital. Welcome, Parry Shen.
Hello, thanks for having me, Keith. Hello.
Thanks for being live this time. I think you were actually on a couple months ago, like via satellite on tape delay when we did the Secret Identity show.
That was too important. Doing something. No.
but here you are. Thanks for being on the show.
No problem.
So I know that Unidentified was a big deal for you. It's the first film that you produced, right?
Yes, and I don't know, it might be the last. No, it was just every single. I'm a very organized person, and it literally required everything I had to sort of kind of keep things together. I mean, I think after this production, I went up. Anytime I saw a producer I worked with in the past, I just gave them a big hug, because I said, I'm sorry, I didn't know what you went through. I'm sorry I took you for granted, because, I mean, literally, a hands-on producer oversees pretty much every facet, from casting to catering to the contracts to the locations. So it was, I mean, we had to do that because, we had such a low budget. We could hire out and outsource if we wanted to for all those parts that, you see, but we just didn't have that kind of funds.
So how did you get involved? I mean, because like I mentioned earlier, I mean, there were times that I think you and I were even together, and you were on the phone like, oh, I got to take this, and like I have contracts to sign and all this. Like, how did you get involved in the movie as a producer to begin with?
Right. Eddie Mui, who is this guy right here, he came to me. We've been friends for about 12 years, and he came to me, and I think at the end of 2011 said, hey, I've got this idea. when you go to Vegas, there's that really dark part of the road near Zizek's Road around that area. Imagine if these guys just stopped off and then they were going for a pee break, and all of a sudden they see something that's out of this world, sort of extraterrestrial. What would you do realistically,
Mm-hmm.
And first he came to me with like 3 other ideas before this, and I was like, I pretty much guessed the ending of all of them. I was like, and he's like, okay, how about this idea? And I know that Eddie is really into UFOs and things like that. He's watched every single UFO documentary, and so I knew he would be able to bring a lot of real stories to it. And then I started doing more research, and I was like, wow, this stuff almost writes itself. Some of the stuff that consistently, all these accounts that people have been saying that when they've been abducted, they're all pretty much on the same page. And I was like, wow, there's got to be some truth to this. And then I knew Jason Miller, the director. We've worked on a lot of the Hatchet movies in the past, and I was like, well, first of all, we need someone who is good at special effects, and who's a good writer and director, and Jason pretty much is kind of like a jack of all trades. And I said, if we get this guy, Jason, it'll be getting like 5 guys, which will save money, and I knew Jason was itching to direct something, so, but that means I would have to take on all of the other things, which I was like, okay, it seemed okay at first, but then once the paperwork started coming in, I'm like, oh my god!
What did I get myself into?
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you were able to get Jason on, and it would be great to have him on the show. Oh wait, we do have Jason on the show.
What?
Yeah, it's crazy. It's like you said it. That's how great a producer you are. You said it, and boom, we have him. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's bring on our final panelist tonight. He is the director of Unidentified. As Parry mentioned, he is much of his work on the Hatchet films. He's also in visual effects. Also based out in the West Coast in California. Let's welcome Jason Miller.
Hello.
Hey, Jason.
Keith, I'm a huge fan, so in honor of you, I put up a Superman cape behind.
Nice. Yeah, normally I have the Superman cape behind me, but tonight I'm rocking the Chops t-shirt because Strength in Numbers, as you may or may not know, is now available on iTunes. Thanks for all of your help in promoting it, all of you out there in the internet lands. But normally there's the Superman cape's actually back there. So thanks, Jason, for repping the Superman cape tonight.
Of course.
So Parry said that this is your first time directing a film?
This is my first feature, yeah.
And how was that experience? After coming, you did visual effects on the Hatchet films, correct?
Yeah, I directed Second Unit on Hatchet 2, and because that's a low budget movie as well, Second Unit was a lot more involved than usual for a movie like that. So I was directing whole scenes and more of the action stuff. So I was ready to direct a feature, and I knew that the first feature that I would probably direct would be a low-budget feature. I didn't know it would be this low budget, but it was very challenging. But I think it was because it was so challenging. The end result, it was more rewarding. I'm very proud of the movie, and I'm glad. And I made the movie that I wanted to make. So we had that freedom by doing it low budget.
So Parry mentioned that the film itself is the spawn of Eddie Mui, and Eddie was actually, we wanted Eddie on tonight. He was planning to be on tonight, but he's actually up in Seattle for the Asian American Film Festival, and I think he's still hungover from the Super Bowl because Eddie is a big Seahawks fan. So I think he's still recovering from the Super Bowl, but he couldn't join us tonight. But hopefully you're out there watching Eddie, and shout out to you if you are. But since this is a story that came from Eddie. And Parry talked about how he came to him with the idea. How did you guys take that germ of an idea and fashion it out to a movie? Because the movie's a found footage film. Was that something that was part of the original pitch, or is that something that you brought to it, Jason?
I think that was part of the original pitch, right, Parry?
Yeah, I mean, we pretty much said how to make it cost-effective. Would be to do it through found footage, but at the same time, it also would bring a cool realism to it and almost make it real time, as if you literally picked up this camera, this whole journey from all these guys kind of hanging out, and then the camera would catch little things in the background that the actual people, the guys, the guys wouldn't see, but the audience would see, and playing around with those kind of things, of a forced perspective, and trying to find creative ways of why the camera would be powered on at each time. Something would be happening, whether it would be goofing around or they saw something weird. That was a challenge. We tried to stay away from the kind of like the lot of crutches that found footage films usually do, which is like shooting directly into a mirror. We had to find creative ways of how to give all the actors FaceTime. Otherwise, the guy who owns the camera would be like, all you would hear is this ominous voice, So that was really cool, even though it looks like, that look was intentionally done, and it was kind of forced you to be creative in that sense, being limited to those parameters.
Yeah, and one of the other things that we had to discuss was what type of found footage movie were we making, because there's different types. There's like the documentary found footage where they are doing interviews on camera and that type of thing, and then there's the found footage movie where they just cut it randomly like a narrative movie and kind of don't pay attention to the fact that it's found footage. But I was focused on making it in the true vein of a found footage movie, like Blair Witch and Cloverfield, Paranormal Activity, where the camera goes on, you see what happens, or maybe you just miss something that happens, and then it turns off when they're done, with recording what they're recording.
Yeah, no, I totally get what you mean. That was one of the things I appreciated about the film, because I think you were subtweeting, but when you were talking about movies that forget their found footage, I think instantly of a movie like Chronicle. As much as I like that movie, there were scenes in Chronicle where I was like, how the hell is the camera catching all this stuff?
Who is editing all this footage? Who's editing all the cell phone footage? I mean, that's what kind of took me out of it. But I mean, it did very well. So obviously,
right.
A lot of people didn't care. But for us making this, I mean, that kind of every time we would. That's what was great when Eddie and Jason and I, we would meet at lunch to kind of to hash out the details of the script. I think at one point, a suggestion of like, should we do like an interview to like explain exposition, and then we all kind of came to the consensus like, no, just who has found this camera and has edited this, and how is it being shown? It's like we kind of really want to stay true to the fact that if someone picked it up, this is what they would see, and they may not catch everything because they're kind of a bystander,
Right.
And we try to like pepper as much without being obvious that we're trying to give exposition, but still telling a story.
But I think it makes sense that this is a post-YouTube film, right? So like the main character, well, not the main character, but one of the main characters, 4 main characters. It's you playing Jeremy. And real quick, were you Jeremy Lin? Were you named after Jeremy Lin?
Jason said, "What do you want your name to be?" And at that time, Linsanity was going on. I said, "My name's gonna be Jeremy."
And then Eddie was all butthurt about it.
Because as soon as Eddie called you Jeremy in the film, I'm like, oh, come on, really? But it's you and Eddie, and then the other two of the 4 friends is Colton Dunn and Eric Artell.
Eric Artell, yeah.
And they play the other 2 friends, and Eric is the one who's kind of the driving force. He's the Jody man. So like the fact that he's got like a YouTube persona, and that helps with the whole found footage. And there's the poster that Parry is showing the world. You can't see Parry and Eddie's face necessarily, but they're screaming. but the fact that Jody's character is like a YouTube personality kind of helps with to explain why are you filming so much stuff too, right?
Yeah, give it a definite reason of why the camera was on us all the time, and how we basically didn't want it on, documenting this trip, this sort of a guy's trip to Vegas, and it's kind of like you don't bring anything of documentation during this this weekend.
What stays in Vegas, right?
Debauchery. So it's kind of good because he was kind of the outsider. That kind of starts off the film. So, but then eventually the reasonings why we are filming change.
Yeah. And we'll leave it at that. So we'll try not to spoil it, since the movie doesn't come out until Tuesday. We want you guys to go out and get it. Junko, I know that you were, like I said, one of the first people to actually see the film at the screening.
Yeah.
And in your review, you just mentioned earlier that it's kind of like there's a hangover vibe to it. And one of the things about the film too is that, as Parry said, it's about it's a road trip to Vegas with 4 friends, and there's a good portion of the film is about that. So can you talk about how the camaraderie of the main characters, how you felt about that as a viewer?
Yeah, I mean, it was a good setup because it wasn't just, yeah, there's always has to be the good balance of, you know, the guys who are really good friends, and then there's the odd one out. So there's that formula that balances everything out. So it's just everyone's always on the same page and always, you know, always friendly. That would be really boring. So that's where the movie kind of slides into a really comfortable place because everyone's really familiar with that setup, which is key because the rest of the trip ends up being, you know, it'll go back to the hangout, like, you know, the weird things that happen on a trip thing is there, but the everything else that I can't talk about, everything else, you know, it sets it up to be that much of a bigger impact, I think. You know, for once, you know, for an actor's perspective, or even, you know, even producer or director's perspective, you know, creating something that you want. Since you had control over writing it, was there ever a point where, when you were writing and creating the characters, I guess why did the characters turn out to be who they were versus like, you know, like deep down inside, I want to be like the straight lawyer type, or, you know, there's some roles in anyone's career that, like, you know, I haven't had a shot at. You know, it's like, oh, I wonder if I could take that archetype and weave it into, you know, Jeremy, whoever it is, you know, because you know, you have full reign over it. So were there aspects of the characters that you were playing, or of Jeremy, basically, where you got to play a character you had never before had done, and you got to write him the way you wanted to write him? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I just got to name him. That's all. But I know what you're saying, because, you know, as an actor, it makes sense that you would try to, you know, lean towards something that, you know, you want to do, and there just wasn't any room for this particular movie to be toting a gun and running around and you know, shooting people.
Yeah.
But
okay, we all know what your dream is.
yeah, that's mine. You know, I haven't done a lot of that, and but what this project fulfilled for me was more along the lines of every actor, when they saw what Matt Damon and Ben Affleck did, you know, just like they were just kind of like going around. They got some nice roles here and there, but they want to actually do something that was kind of theirs, and have kind of like say. I mean, what's really gratifying for this project, usually when I see a project that I've done, I know I only know the parts that, you know, you're on set for, right?
Right.
But with this film, it was so different. Where when I was with Jason, we're watching, you know, stuff doing, you know, the sound design and stuff, and I'm watching. I'm like, I literally know every single aspect of every scene. You know, I know how that location came to be. I know, how we got that actor, or how we almost didn't get that actor, or how this was a happy accident. You know, I know the contracts. I know, you know, the SAG paperwork. You know, everything, and that was really kind of awesome. So that kind of fulfilled that need. You know, that kind of empowerment issue, you know, for actors who want to kind of like take as much control, you know, possible creatively.
I know that the way we wrote the script, the way I wrote the script, was way ass backwards to what would normally happen during a real movie production, because we wanted to keep everything moving, and because it's low budget, we knew that it could easily be pushed aside for other projects. So we decided to keep the momentum going and just go into production as soon as we had the story down. And so, but I was still writing the script, even though we were casting and looking for locations and stuff like that. So a lot of it came down to, once we had the cast put together, their characters kind of just spoke to me when everyone was together. And because it's a found footage movie, I wanted everything to be natural. So there's a lot of improv going on, and based on the first weekend that we shot, which we went to Vegas for all the guys to get to know each other better, based on that is when I started really writing the details of each character.
Yeah, we went to Vegas just to actually kind of like get the cast to bond and do some kind of like test shots. And after a while, after the first weekend, we're like, wow, we can actually use this stuff. So we just kept kind of going. So all the stuff in Vegas was kind of supposed to be a test, but is actually kind of what we went with. Like there's a scene where we had to have a prostitute, right? It's in the trailer, and we're like, oh. So in Vegas, I'm like on the phone trying to count. I'm like, should we use the real one? I'm like, no.
Yeah, or at least that's what Parry tells his wife when she sees the credit card bill.
But yeah,
the real ones were too expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, I mean, we had to call a casting agent in Nevada, and the girl who ended up doing it, Tala Marie, she's great. I mean, if I'm telling you this on the phone, it's gonna sound sketchy. Hey, we're 4 guys, we're doing this movie. We can't pay you a lot, but come out here at 11 p.m. And I mean, to her credit, she did it, and a lot of people thought she was a real prostitute. Kept looking to the camera like, oh shoot.
Well, one other thing that Junko mentioned in her review is that just the fact that one of the things that stands out for me as someone who's seen the film too is that the cast, you guys have mentioned the cast and the camaraderie around the 4 of you, but it was just refreshing to see a film with so many people of color in lead roles that were not playing stereotypical roles either. So can you talk a little bit, was that intentional? I know that you being a producer and this being Eddie's story, that you guys were probably going to have to play those roles and bring that to it. But even casting Colton and then just like I said, was it important to kind of show that, or was that kind of a secondary thing and not necessarily in the forefront of when you were casting and creating the movie?
I mean, I was trying to be, just speaking for myself, I was trying to be as objective as possible from a producer standpoint, and I'm like, should I be in this? Am I the best person to be in this? And I talked to Eddie about this, and Eddie basically said, how many opportunities? I think he says, as Asian Americans, artists, we never get this opportunity very often. This is a ripe opportunity to do this, and to be a part of it and kind of have strong 3-dimensional Asian American characters. But at the same time, when we opened up casting for the other 2 roles, it was kind of, just kind of see who worked. We weren't specifically looking to make it any, checking off, okay, we got this.
Sure. It wasn't affirmative action.
Yeah, it was pretty much people because we had to work fast. Basically, Eric I'd met in a voiceover class, and just knowing who we had in mind for Jody, I'm like, I think he would be really good. And then Jason knows Colton from Hatchet 2, and he's really quick on improv. And we both came in. We like both of them, and we're like, oh boy, it's only one character, Jody. And then Eddie said, why don't we get both of them? And actually, that was a really good idea. I mean, it sounds obvious now, but we kind of written the script like only 3 guys, but it actually ended up so good.
Oh, that's interesting. So Dave didn't exist until Colton came in.
Yeah, and
and Colton came in later on in the process because we were done casting. We already cast. I don't think we officially went out to Eric, but we had decided that Eric was going to be Jody, and then Colton was supposed to meet us the week before for casting, but he was in Vegas shooting a live show with Drew Carey. So I didn't think he would want to do the movie, first of all, if he's shooting stuff with Drew Carey. But he still wanted to meet up. And once Eddie met Colton, they just hit it off so well. And I didn't know Colton was such a UFO fanatic too. Uh-huh. So I had done my homework, but Eddie and Colton knew stuff that I had no idea. Like
they've been abducted and probed before, maybe.
I think so. They knew names of people on these documentary shows, and
that's awesome. Because like Dave, I mean, no offense, Parry, but Dave was my favorite character in the movie, I think. So it was interesting that he wasn't even, that character didn't exist when you guys were creating the film.
It was such a happy accident,
Yeah, and then writing the character was fun because once I saw these guys all together, I was like, Dave is Jody's foil. He's always, giving her a hard time, and so that was the fun part about writing for Dave.
But yeah, I mean, I'm sure it wasn't like a pronounced thing to make sure, like, let's have a black guy and 2 Asian guys. But it was refreshing to see, regardless if it was intentional or not, fully fleshed out characters like that on screen. Because, like, Junko brought up the Hangover kind of feel with, like, 4 dudes going to Vegas, but none of you were playing the Ken Jeong character, which was great. That's all I can ask for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew that Eddie and Parry, wanted to play true to who they were, and when I'm writing, I didn't really think about a stereotypical character like that. So I just wrote them for them, and that's the way we did it. I was actually looking at the cast after we were done. I was like, this is a really diverse cast, and it's a cool thing. It's not done in every movie, so I was really proud of that. And
especially in mainstream Hollywood, it's rare to see, like I said earlier, people of color in not just lead roles, but like non-stereotypical lead roles. And that's what I think is one of the refreshing things about this film in particular. Jason, behind you, I just wanted to point out to viewers at home, and if you're not viewing this, if you're listening to this on a podcast, there's something behind you that's under the Superman cape. Is that from the film?
This is...
Don't touch it!
Oh. This is the probe. It's a very underutilized prop, but it's really cool. It lights up and stuff. Isn't that
That's
cool?
awesome.
But yeah, so it's kind of underutilized in the movie, but I wanted to
show it off,
display it for you guys.
Well, I mean, we've talked a lot about the shoestring budget that you filmed it on, and the framework of the found footage aspect. But there's a scene in the film that I don't understand how you were able to do it. Without spoiling the movie, there's a fairly long sequence in the film that looks like you guys actually hopped on a space shuttle and went up into space and did an Alfonso Cuarón gravity thing where like you literally send people up into the atmosphere. Can you talk about how you did that, Jason? Was that computer CGI? Was that like actual real footage? How did you do that?
Well, we decided that because we were low budget, we could do it with CGI, but I was watching these YouTube videos, and there's people that send like beer cans and ice cream cones to space with a weather balloon, and I thought it would be really cool to just get the footage that way, where we send a camera into space, because the shot calls for it to go up and then come down, and so we went and tried to find someone that could actually do that for us, and we found a father-son team who had done it a couple times, and they actually first we decided we were going to do it ourselves, and then we looked into it, and that was impossible. We're not weather scientists. So we got this father and son team, and they told us what it would cost to do it and what we needed, and they let us help them do it, which I thought was cool. And we got a big ass weather balloon and strapped a camera to it and sent it to space. And Parry, you can talk about how it failed.
Parry was in the balloon too?
Yeah, I was in it.
You were holding the camera.
Hey! This wasn't part of the deal. So yeah, basically what you do, and I have on the DVD we'll have I had a camera with me documenting this whole thing, and it's really cool. But the first time that we did it, you put it on there, and you put it on you pack it with a ham radio, because the ham radio has kind of like a GPS tracking thing that will track it across different countries and stuff like that. I mean, the range is amazing. So a ham radio, as opposed to a regular GPS, is what to do. And then you send it up. It's supposed to pop at 80,000 feet, and then from that and the wind patterns, you can see where it's going to fall through the trajectory, right? So they did all the calculations. We're in there following, driving, and it's still hovering at like 50,000 feet, still hovering, and it kept going, and we basically let it go at Victorville, California. We chased it for 180 miles, almost to the Arizona state line. And the reason why it didn't work was because the balloon had never popped. So there was a pinhole leak, so the wind kept on just pushing it eastward and kept on until it just finally deflated and fell to Earth.
So you guys are in a truck, like just following it underneath it the
No,
whole
you can't
time?
even see it. You're judging through calculations from the ham radio. I thought naively, like, well, maybe we can see it up in the sky. You cannot. As soon as you let go of the balloon, after like a minute, you can't see it at all. So it was impossible. So we ultimately finally found, and when we looked at the footage, we didn't even get it because it never went high enough. So like, oh my gosh, should we just fake it? And ultimately we sucked it up and did it again. And this time we sent in a small balloon. It went up faster and it popped. And we had this. We were showing the GPS thing. It says it fell on this ranch right here. And sure enough, when we drove up to there, I have footage of it at this guy, the owner's feet. The guy who owns the ranch. It's literally at his feet, and he's like looking at it, basically thinking, "What the hell is this? What just fell out of the sky?"
What unidentified flying object just landed on the ranch?
So, and then the final footage. I mean, it's a shame because the footage looks so beautiful. It looks so fake. It looks like basically Superman is supposed to come up and then fly off. How he looks in the camera. But when we had to dirty it up because our camera is supposed to be found footage. It's supposed to be all cracked and once it gets that high. So we had to Jason dirtied it up a lot. But the real raw footage is gorgeous.
Yeah.
I can't believe
It's
we got it.
amazing. Yeah, it's an amazing part of the movie.
No, but yeah, it's probably one of the standout moments in the film, and I mean, and the thing is, for such a, I think it helps your experience on Hatchet, but for such a low budget film, I mean, the special effects that we do see throughout the film are pretty impressive. I know Junko, you had mentioned that in your review that you were pretty impressed with the amount of special effects.
What I liked about it most is that it's not overdone. That it gets like a lot of TV shows, because they have such a quick turnaround. A lot of the graphics, the special effects start getting a little messy and forced and stuff, but it was subtle, it was well integrated, and it was never really in your face. And even that great the footage, when the camera goes up in the air, I mean, that's not a special effect, but it has just as impact as someone artificially creating a certain environment.
Yeah.
So it made it really seamless. Yeah.
It all works in the context of the film too, and I think that's what makes it impressive, is that it's not special effects for the sake of special effects. I mean, because it is this found footage conceit. The special effects kind of happen off in the distance. There's a scene in the trailer where the car's driving away, and all of a sudden this guy gets sucked up into the sky, and it's like if you blink and you miss it, but I think that's what you're supposed to feel, right?
That's actually a funny story because that wasn't supposed to be a special effect. We had a whole stunt team there to pull the guy off camera, and they didn't bring enough people with them, so they couldn't do the force that I wanted. Like, I wanted it to look forceful, and he ended up just looking like he fell backwards. So I was like, oh man, we got to make this into a visual effects shot. And I actually sent it to a friend in New York who does visual effects because I was doing the rest of them. Josh Petrino, he did the visual effects for that scene, and it came out so awesome.
Yeah, that is by far that's one of the gateways into what happens on the trip. But that effect by far is my favorite.
Yes, he did an awesome job.
Yeah.
And the idea we knew we needed special visual effects in it, but I wanted to make sure we kept them as realistic as possible and as believable as possible, and we didn't overuse them, just because I do visual effects. So as much that we could do on set, we did.
Really quick, I think there's a snippet of it in the trailer perhaps, but there is an abandoned town of sorts. Do you guys just drive up to a town and make it abandoned? Like, how did that happen?
Everybody leave. I got $100.
Yeah, we put all of our budget into that town, making it look like. No, we were looking for locations, and someone told me about this place. Where is it? In Victorville?
Yeah.
That used to be like an army base, like residence, and it's abandoned, and it's basically a ghost town. So I looked it up and we found pictures, and I was like, that would be a really cool place to have a scene in there. So I kind of wrote the scene based on what I knew of the place, and it's very weird and airy to be in there. And there's also a lot of asbestos. So,
Oh God, I didn't know that.
so we tried to be quick with all our scenes inside the house.
Not too much scurrying or scuffling. Trying not to kick up too much dust.
No, I think Eddie wanted to take a nap in there, and I told him it wasn't a good idea.
It was just creepy because it was like as if a nuclear bomb hit. I mean, it's like like a little town of like Burbank, and it's just a small city in California, and it's as if nobody was there. Every single house that you look at, it was just everything gone, and tumbleweed filled up the kitchens, and it was just very trippy. And at one point, I think Jason, you were toying around with doing it at night, and I'm like, weirdness. I don't know who's squatting these things.
It would have been too scary at night.
Yeah.
Oh God.
One other thing I wanted to get to is some of the artwork in the film was created by mutual friends of mine and Parry's, and so Eric did not draw the characters that Jody Man claims are his own. Who is responsible for that artwork in the film? So for those of you who haven't seen the film yet, Jody is a wannabe comic book artist, so he has a sketch pad full of crazy superhero ideas. But Parry, who actually created those characters?
Now,
who drew those characters? Who drew those characters?
Who drew those characters is our art director from Secret Identities and Shattered, Jerry Ma. But the actual concept of these characters were actually Jason's, and the characters that he came up with in high school.
Oh, really?
Well, some of them. Let's not go overboard.
The Sesquillian is yours?
Sesquillian came up on set like in 2 seconds of thinking about a new character. But yeah, so I came up with this idea to have him talk about these comic book characters, and then I was just trying to think of, new characters, and I was like, I used to want to be a comic book artist, so I have these characters that I created, and there was like 4 that I had already created, and then on set I just came up with a bunch of other random bad names, like Sesquillian.
Which is
half Sasquatch.
Half chameleon and half Sasquatch, yeah.
Yes. And he's
So, yeah,
the perfect soldier.
Yeah, he's got little legs too. I love that part. He's this giant Sasquatch with these tiny green legs.
Yeah.
But yeah, you enlisted our friend Jerry to do that art, and in fact, this is the second indie film in a row, Parry, where you're rocking Epic Proportions T-shirts throughout the film. In fact, like all of you are wearing Epic tees
Yes.
at the end of the film. And was it, how soon until Brad in General Hospital was wearing a Golden Arms T-shirt is what I want to know.
That is a good question. Actually, the costumer actually has been admiring a lot of my shirts, so I'll try to work. I have been trying to work it in, but Jerry, of course, is saying, "Hey man, forget it. You don't have to do it." I'm working on it, Jerry.
And that is actually the best Jerry Ma impression in the history of Jerry Ma impressions, just so you know. You also enlisted our friend Bernard Chang of DC Comics too, right? Didn't he do some artwork in the film?
Yes, we had fake prop menus for our diner scene, and he created the logo of the Lockheed Cafe for us.
I love that Parry has them in within arm's reach. That's how you know Parry is
My
like
closet
super
has
organized.
everything. I even have the Rockweilers thing that I sometimes put on.
I have pictures of Perry wearing that. I'll show them to you right now.
Post it
Actually,
up. Post it up.
The
You follow
poster's done by
Jason Miller on
Diodato.
Twitter. Oh, is that
who's also
Diodato?
one of our- Yeah, he did the poster. Diodato did the
Nice.
poster. Another artist from Secret Identities and Shattered.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I'm saying. As producer, you utilizing all these, past contacts and
Right.
getting friends to help out. That's what you really have to do. And what someone said it great. When you have the money, you kind of get lazy. Where when you don't have the money, it forces you to be creative and find the answers to
Right.
making it work and closing that gap.
Right. No. In the beginning, I thought that maybe you were like making a movie as an excuse to just hang out in Vegas. But then, like I said, when I saw you, I was like, I saw you in person, just like shuffling papers and taking phone calls and just being crazy. I think it was when we were all at the Janum Museum. You would like go off for like 5 minutes and be like, "Where'd Perry go?" And like you come back with like your hair's gray and shit. So, I mean, it was like, wow, dude is actually putting in work. So I mean. Like you said, this is probably the first and only time you'll be that hands-on.
Yeah, I mean, actually, there's a scene at night where we had a generator powering lights, and Jason had said, you know, what if it conks out, and so I booked a backup generator just in case, and sure enough, the generator conks out. We have no lights, and then we use the backup, and meanwhile, I'm trying to act in the scene, and I remember running back to get the other generator and yelling out in profanity, saying, "I am never effing acting and producing in something ever again." Because the whole time I was like, you know, not in the scene. All I'm thinking is all the dollars that we're potentially losing if the second one conks out. So,
well, it's hard. It must be hard to concentrate when you have to keep so many things.
The good thing though, the scene was just a lot of yelling, so and screaming in horror, which wasn't anything emotional. So just like, so,
oh my God, all the money I'm gonna lose.
I used it.
So I wanted to ask about one more thing, but I know we're getting close to the wrap-up time. But the story that you've actually shared with me in the past, Barry, I wanted you to kind of like share it with the world. Is there's another scene that I think is a happy accident in the film, is when you guys are in Vegas and you're walking through a parking garage, and lo and behold, you see the time machine from Back to the Future. I'm assuming you did not write that into the script.
Yeah, we all looked around. We finally found it. We're like, "It's here, Jason."
Yeah, we searched Vegas for hours trying to find the right DeLorean. There was like 5 of them, but we found the one that was right from Back to the Future. No, actually, I remember that night because I was so exhausted for some reason, and I had like a blister on my foot, and I was sick of walking around with the camera, and we were trying to get this one scene, and we couldn't find the right location for it, and we were walking back from this casino, and we kind of had given up, and all of a sudden, it was like a shining light on the DeLorean, and I was like, we can use this. We got to just use this, and we'll make it in the parking garage, and we kind of just came up with that scene on the fly, and it was pretty funny.
We saw it there, and then we're like, we need to work this in. And I mean, that was so great that we didn't have a lot of time, and Jason was getting exhausted. We were shooting almost like 12 hours at that point, and trying to make the most use of the day. And it just goes to show all that's, you know, we basically had to write a scene right then and there, and that was through the improvisation of Colton and Eric, and you know, and Jason and I just kind of like following along and saying, okay, this is how it'll go. How would it work in the context of what we've already shot? So, and what we're going to get.
No, I love the tag of that scene. I don't want to give it away too much, but it's something that your character does. You actually go up to the car and look for identifying markers. I'm like, that's such a Perry thing. That's something Perry would totally do.
It hurt because I had to pretend that I didn't know anything about Back to the Future. I'm like a huge Back to the Future.
I know.
Like, what
But
car is this?
I felt like that brought another dimension to Perry's character because the way it plays out, the Jody character doesn't really know what he's talking about. He knows the DeLorean and the flux capacitor, and that's it. And then Perry's the one that says the out of time thing, and I thought that was a funny bit for people that are paying attention.
Right. No, it's a great scene, and I think just knowing the story of how you guys just kind of by luck came across the DeLorean, and then to have it weaved into the film so well was pretty great. I do want to give you guys a chance before we wrap up to plug any upcoming projects that you may have. Jason, do you have anything on the ticker that you want to tell the world about?
I just finished writing my next script, and I'm working on the development of that. So we'll see. It's an action movie.
Nice.
That's all I'll say. This is more action, like hard action.
So Perry's gonna run around with a gun finally.
I hope.
Maybe. If he doesn't quit producing.
Oh.
And Perry, I know that like your role on General Hospital is has been getting a lot of pub in my supermarket aisles lately. Do you foresee Brad having more to do?
Yeah, they've been keeping him in, and now he's in this sort of quasi love triangle with this new guy that's come into town. So now it's this Lucas and Felix thing. Those are the two other guys that are fighting for Brad's attention. So which is weird, because everyone didn't think I would. Everyone thought, a lot of the fans thought that I would kind of be the one odd man out. So it's just kind of funny that Brad is kind of the center of this triangle, which is really cool, because I did this part, I started almost a year ago, and it's kind of interesting how it's grown. So it's kind of cool. I've never had something that I could develop long term. Usually I'm on a show for one or a couple episodes, and then you're out, and so it's really kind of cool to kind of craft something long term.
Right. Well, I think we'll end it on that. I want to thank Junko for coming back and being on the panel, and also want to thank our special guests tonight, Parry Shen and Jason Miller. You can find them on Twitter. Junko is at GoJunko, Parry is at Parry Shen, and Jason is at Jason_R_Miller. The movie Unidentified comes out on DVD, on demand, and on iTunes this coming Tuesday, February 11th. Speaking of iTunes, you can catch Hard N.O.C. Life in audio podcast form on iTunes now, so subscribe to us there. If you don't like seeing our lovely faces and just want to hear our dulcet tones, you can subscribe to the podcast via iTunes. I want to thank you for watching Hard N.O.C. Life. We'll be back in 2 weeks with another episode, and until then, have a good time. See you.
Well, it's the NOC in full color, you see me? The Hard N.O.C. Life, comics, movies, and TV, yeah. Pop culture with a different perspective. Watch it on your screen, hit play, so check this. This is the Hard N.O.C. Life, but not the chica kind. More like the people in the world seeking perspectives with a different line. The kids who share their interests together with a similar kind. When they said John Glover for Spider-Man, they didn't mind. The activists, directors, comments, and the lectures. Fanboys, professional artists, and professors. Maybe a nerd who's just like you, talking about the things that you like too. So I invite you to the NOC.